theme for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
We're working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus. We're coming to you live from Manila and Vietnam. Hello, Charlene.
Hello, Alma. Hello, I'm Charlene Navaja, bringing you the news in Vietnam and the ASEAN region.
On today's headlines.
21.
The Department of Health on Thursday welcomed a positive outlook on the government's pandemic response as national case trends continue to decline.
26,400.
Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida hosts his Vietnamese counterpart Pham Minh Chinh in Tokyo and announces that Japan will supply an additional 1.54 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccination to the Southeast Asian country.
The Duterte administration has been consistent in safeguarding the country's sovereignty in the West Philippine Sea. That, according to National Security Advisor and National Task Force for the West Philippine Sea Chair Hermogenes Esperon Jr.
And Binibining Pilipinas celebrated the double victory homecoming of two of its recently crowned queens, Cinderella Obenita, Miss Intercontinental 2021, and Maureen Montan, Miss Globe 2021 at the Novotel Araneta City.
First in our news, the Department of Health today welcomed a positive outlook on the government's pandemic response as national case trends continue to decline. Data from the DOH showed a further decline in the average daily cases in the recent week. The nationwide risk classification remains low, with a recent negative 49% two-week growth rate and moderate average daily attack rate at 1.55 cases per 100,000 population. Out of 121 provinces, highly urbanized cities and independent component cities in the country, 89% are under alert level 2 with minimal to low risk case classification, while the remaining are under alert level 3 and with one province at alert level 4. Based on the information generated from Our World in data of the Oxford University as of November 22, the Philippines has lower confirmed COVID cases and deaths per 1 million population compared to some neighboring countries in ASEAN. Data from the World Health Organization as of November 23 also show that the country ranked 65th in the terms of countries with the most number of active cases, 134th in terms of COVID cases per million, 120th in terms of deaths per million, and 93rd in terms of case fatality rate. These rankings have improved since the end of case peaks recorded last September 2021.
Brunei will not immediately enter the endemic phase of its COVID-19 recovery plan once it hits the 80% vaccination target, the health minister said at a press briefing on Wednesday. Explaining the decision to delay moving to the endemic phase, YB Dato Dr. H.G. Mod Isham H.G. Jafar said the government needs more time to prepare for a future with endemic COVID. Some 93.4% of the population has taken at least one dose of a COVID vaccine, while 78.3% has taken the full two-dose regimen, according to the health ministry figures. The country initially planned to treat the coronavirus as endemic once its inoculation rate reaches 80%, but health authorities said Brunei will achieve the vaccination milestone earlier than anticipated. The minister's announcement comes less than a week after the Sultanate ushered in the transition phase which saw the easing of COVID movement curbs for fully vaccinated people.
Back here in the country, President Duterte will participate online in the 13th Asia-Europe meeting, or ASEM summit, on November 25 today to the 26th. That according to the Office of the President yesterday. The Office of the President said in a statement, the President will join his counterparts from Asia and Europe in an exchange of views on multilateralism, growth, and sustainable development. Duterte is scheduled to speak on rebuilding a resilient future, as well as on international and regional issues at the second plenary and retreat sessions of the summit on November 26. The 13th ASEM Summit will be chaired by the Kingdom of Cambodia with the theme Strengthening Multilateralism for Shared Growth. During the two-day meeting, the ASEM leaders will discuss the ASEM's role in revitalizing multilateralism for global peace and stability, in strengthening rule-based trading system, and in promoting inclusive and sustainable growth and developments, as well as connectivity. The ASEM leaders will also discuss the COVID-19 and socio-economic recovery, which focuses on addressing issues caused by COVID-19, advancing post-COVID-19 socio-economic recovery for shared growth, and rebuilding a resilient future.
The spread of COVID-19 has brought a slew of challenges for the world, but also created huge opportunities, requiring all Eurasian leaders to join hands in the pandemic fight and to bolster investment and trade relations for the common interest, according to Prime Minister Hun Sen on November 24. The Prime Minister was speaking via video link at the first Asia-Europe Economic and Business Forum, a side event of the virtual 13th Asia-Europe Summit, or ASEM 13, which the Kingdom is due to host from November 25th to 26th. The themes for the AEE, BF1, and the ASEM 13 are respectively transitioning to a new normal, leveraging global value chains, multilateralism, and the 4IR, or Fourth Industrial Revolution, and strengthening multilateralism, shared growth. Hansen listed some of the challenges as the decline of global value and production chains, the emergence of a multipolar international system and geopolitical tension, an upsurge in social inequality and poverty, greater and faster momentum in factory relocation caused by fallout from ongoing trade and tech wars, and increasingly dangerous threats posed by climate change. The 13th Asia-Europe Meeting Summit will be held on November 25th to 26th.
In other news, Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida hosted his Vietnamese counterpart Pham Minh Chinh in Tokyo and announced that Japan will supply an additional 1.54 million doses of COVID-19 vaccination to the Southeast Asian country. They also confirmed the two governments will continue cooperating to ensure freedom of navigation and overflight in the South China Sea. Take a look.
初の外国首脳として陳首相を迎えてきたことを非常に嬉しく思います。ベトナムは自由で開かれたインド太平洋を実現していく上で要となる大切なパートナーです。第一にコロナ対策における協力です。ベトナムで依然としてワクチンが不足する中、今回日本から新たに154万回分のワクチンを供与することとし、明日、陳首相の帰国の便でベトナムへ運ばれます。
Ba là tiếp tục tăng cường hợp tác, nâng cao năng lực y tế, nhất là y tế dự phòng, sản xuất vaccine, thuốc điều trị COVID-19. Cảm ơn Ngài Thủ tướng đã quyết định viện trợ thêm hơn 1,5 triệu liều vaccine COVID-19 cho Việt Nam. Tiếp tục quan tâm hỗ trợ công dân, doanh nghiệp của mỗi nước, cải thiện điều kiện sống, an sinh xã hội, tạo điều kiện thuận lợi, phát huy vai trò của cộng đồng hơn 450.000 người Việt. 6 là tái khẳng định tầm quan trọng của bảo đảm hòa bình, an ninh, an toàn, tự do hàng hải và hàng không tại Biển Đông.
According to a report from the Japan Times, Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and his Vietnamese counterpart, Phan Minh Chinh, on Wednesday agreed to step up security cooperation between their countries while sharing serious concerns over aggressive moves in regional waters in a veiled reference to China's growing assertiveness. Both countries are involved in territorial disputes with China. China claims the Japanese-controlled Senkaku Islands in the East China Sea, while Vietnam has disputes in the South China Sea, where Beijing has expansive claims. Meeting the previous day, Defense Minister Nobuo Kishi and his Vietnamese counterpart General Phan Van Giang agreed to strongly oppose unilateral attempts to change the status quo in regional waters without explicitly naming China. Many Japanese firms have factories in Vietnam or use Vietnamese counterparts in their products. And the Prime Minister Kishida and Chinh agreed to strengthen supply chains across their countries, including through the use of digital technologies and diversifying manufacturing facilities.
And back to the Philippines, where the Duterte administration has been consistent in safeguarding the country's sovereignty in the West Philippine Sea, or the WPS. National Security Advisor and National Task Force for the WPS Chair Hermogenes Esperon Jr. said the government is working to enhance stations in the area and doing its best to protect resources in the West Philippine Sea. Let's watch this.
Makikita dyan ang nakalagay na boundary ng EEZ, Exclusive Economic Zone. Nakita mo na napakalayo talaga ng mga isla ng Ayungin at Mischief Reef. Mahigit na 600 nautical miles yan, samantalang 130 knot yung ating Ayungin, 120 dahil mas malayo ang Mischief. So paano naging trespassing tayo dyan? Dapat ang namamayani dyan ay ang international order na tulad ng United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea, which came into ratified in 1984 and came into effect in 1994. Signatory dyan ang China, ang ASEAN at mga iba pang mga. Kaya dapat na tumunod ang China sa mga international law. We consider that as a form of harassment. Although sabi ng kanilang ambassador ay dinodocument lang nila. Silang karapatan na pumunta dyan sa loob ng Ayungin, lapit pa dyan. Sila ang trespassing. Ang President Xi Jinping ay sinasabi niyang we do not bully other nations. At ang kanyang sinasabi ay is development and in the South China Sea. Kakaiba sa nangyayari sa baba. At sa katunayan, ang ating Pangulo ay kanya namang sinabi sa kanyang statement doon sa ASEAN-China Special Summit na kanyang kinukondina ang ginawa na doon sa ating resupply. At quote, if I may quote Mr. Rocky, ang sinabi ng Pangulo, the recent event in the Ayungin Shoal is great concern. Other similar development. This does not speak well of the relations between our partnership. By saying there is simply no other way out of this colossal problem but the rule of law. Yan ang palakos na pangungusap ng ating Pangulo. But we want to reassure our esteemed lawmakers that administration led by the President is doing its best. And as the chairman of the National Task Force for the West Philippines, I can say na is involved in protecting our sovereignty.
Around 800,000 children aged 12 to 17 in Hanoi are expected to be vaccinated, as the city goal is to vaccinate over 95% of children in that age range with 2 vaccine doses. Here's an update from Ralph Kailao, joining us live. Ralph?
Hi, good afternoon, Alma. Here's the latest news here in Vietnam. High school students in Vietnam's capital, Hanoi, received their first Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine jabs. After the city on Tuesday rolled out vaccinations for young people from 12 to 17 years old to curb the coronavirus spread and to reopen schools. Let's listen to some reactions.
Sau khi tiêm em cảm thấy là mình an tâm hơn ạ, và em mong muốn là sắp tới là mình sẽ được quay trở lại trường học ạ.
Gia đình em có tất cả là 7 người và đa số mọi người đã tiêm rồi. Mọi người khá là bất an khi mà em chưa được tiêm, khi mà ra ngoài đường và trở về nhà. Bây giờ hôm nay thì em đã được tiêm rồi và mọi người có vẻ là an tâm hơn khi mà chuẩn bị quay lại trường.
Around 800,000 children aged 12 to 17 in Hanoi are expected to be vaccinated, as the city goal is to vaccinate over 95% of children in that age range with 2 vaccine doses. Schools in Hanoi have been closed since May, but in some suburban districts, students at specific grades have returned to school earlier in November, while the rest still study online. Before Hanoi, several cities and provinces in Vietnam, including Ho Chi Minh City, have begun vaccinating children since late October. Vietnam has approved two COVID-19 vaccines for vaccinating children, one by Pfizer and one by Moderna, with consent forms for parents and guardians being a prerequisite for their children to be vaccinated. The country has recorded more than 1.1 million cases and 24,000 deaths, and it scrambles to secure enough vaccines for its 100 million population. More than half of the country's adult population have been fully vaccinated, according to Vietnam's Health Ministry. And that's the latest news here in Vietnam. Back to you, Alma.
Thank you very much, Ralph, for that update there in Vietnam. Stay safe and looking forward for more updates. Thank you.
Thank you, Alma. I am Ralph Clarence Kayla, reporting live from Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. We live in interesting times.
The Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases, or IATF-EID, should look into further studies on whether the vaccination for children aged 5 to 11 years old against COVID-19 is really beneficial. National Task Force against COVID-19 Medical Advisor Dr. Ted Herbosa said Wednesday. At the Laging Handa press briefing, Herbosa cited that children carrying a dreaded coronavirus usually have very mild symptoms, such as cough and fever. Herbosa, however, noted that some minor COVID-19 patients get multi-organ dysfunctions when treated at the hospital's intensive care unit. Let's take a look.
Pagkatapos nun,
Doktor, ano po ba daw yung mga pag-aaral?
Magdadagdag pa tayo ng polisiya. So kailangan ding tutukan ng ating IATF at ang kanyang mga advisor kung talagang beneficial ba talaga ibigay ito sa mga Pilipinong bata. So 2 steps pa tayo.
Opo.
Ang mga bata kasi very mild ang kanilang simptomas ng COVID. Pag ibig sabihin very mild, mga 1-2 araw lang, parang ubo-sipon. Pero may mga bata na nagsasuffer din ng mga multi-organ syndrome na ICU din, at may mga namamatay din, lalo na kung may comorbidity yung mga bata. Ang pangatlo na rason ay yung mga bata na may tinatamaan ng tinatawag na long-term sequelae or long COVID. Yung long COVID kasi humihina yung puso nila, humihina yung baga nila, at hindi nila nagagawa yung mga normal activity. Para itong nangyari sa polio, for example, yung mga may polio yung binte, napiprevent yun ng bakuna. So ito ang isang rason kung bakit ina-advocate ng karamihang expert din ang magbigay ng bakuna sa below 11 kahit ito po ay experimental pa lang. Kasi ang beneficyo nito ay parang mas maganda kesa sa mga long-term side effect na makukuha sa COVID.
The Philippine Army's 1st Scout Ranger Regiment, or FSRR, and the Indonesian Army Special Forces Command have formally concluded their 2-week virtual training. In a statement on Wednesday night, Army spokesman Colonel Xerxes Trinidad said the training activity, Indonesia-Philippines TA Dolphin X or 13 2021 aims to enhance the capability and interoperability of the two elite units in urban and jungle warfare special operations. Now, this activity, which ran from November 8 to the 22nd, enabled FSRR and the Indonesian Army's Komando Pasukan Khusus or Kopassus Special Forces Command to share their best practices in counterinsurgency, counterterrorism, and military decision-making. FSSR Commander Brigadier General Freddy de la Cruz said the joint training activity had strengthened the relationship between the Philippine Army and the Tentara Nasional Indonesia Angkatan Darat. De la Cruz also said the security challenges being faced in the region involve both traditional and non-traditional security threats, which include terrorism, piracy, transnational crimes, disasters, climate change, and even the current COVID-19 pandemic, called for heightened cooperation between the two military units. And the news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. We shall be right back.
Merienda time na. Anong mas importante? Antok o gutom?
Magkano to, Tres?
Yan ang dirty ice cream.
Oo, nabod mo ko sa'yo kayo na, hingin ka ngayon.
Hirap din sila magkaintindihan dito.
Bakit daw nakalaman nun doon? Nakalaman nun.
Dahil lap trip ang ihain namin sa inyo.
Ang puta mo, Gab.
Papasok na raw ng school.
Gab, gabi na.
At simulan na natin ang isa pang round ng Game of the Day. Ang wallet ba ay lulubog o lulutang? What is Snackable Videos? Pere?
Ito ang apat na Tara Gamers for tonight. Samantha Lopez, a.k.a. Grasa, Wilman Daces, Gene Padilla, Alex the Master Calleja. Reminder lang, pag hindi mo ito nasagot ng tama, ang points mapupunta kay Alex, ha?
Ay, mukhang gipit naman siya kasi sa akin na din.
Ilang buwan na ipinagbubuntis ng African elephant ang kanyang baby. Gracias, sino naman ang pipiliin mong sasagot ng tanong na yan?
I refuse. Second yung law. Player has the right to choose. Okay, sige. I accept. Okay.
Masaya talaga ako ngayon. Sobra. Maganda to. At ito ang Tara Game! Agad!
Welcome back to ASEAN Focus. The United States is shipping another 4 million COVID-19 vaccine doses to Vietnam, the White House said Tuesday, bringing the total of U.S. doses donated globally to nearly 270 million. A senior administration official told AFP that 4,149,990 doses of the Pfizer vaccine are being sent, bringing the total delivered to Vietnam by the United States to 17,589,110 doses. Shipments began Tuesday. Globally, there have now been 268,472,780 doses sent out to 110 countries, which the official who asked not to be identified said it's more than all countries combined have shared. President Joe Biden has made fighting COVID-19 the main focus of his administration since taking office in January, also arguing that giving away vaccines abroad must go hand in hand with domestic efforts. Vietnam, which has a population of about 100 million, has reported 1.1 million infections and almost 24,000 deaths, according to the data from Johns Hopkins University. However, fallout from lockdowns imposed to prevent the spread from spiraling out of control have devastated the economy. Between July and September, GDP shrank 6.17% year on year, which state-run news outlet VN Express said was the first time Vietnam had reported negative quarterly growth since 2000. According to Johns Hopkins University's COVID tracker, just over 43% of the Vietnamese population is fully vaccinated.
Presidential aspirant Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. topped a recent independent and non-commissioned survey on preferred presidential candidates, according to a statement from the former senator's camp. The Pahayag Finalist Survey, which Publicus Asia Incorporated conducted from November 16 to November 18, a day after the substitution deadline, showed Marcos leading across all regional groups with 56.7% compared to Leni Robredo's 15.4% and Manila Mayor Francisco Dumagoso Moreno's 6.9%. Behind them are Senators Bongo, 4.1%, Manny Pacquiao, 3%, and Panfilo Lacson, 2.9%. Marcos held a commanding lead across all regional groups, maintaining his widest lead in North Central Luzon, 60.3%, and Mindanao, 70%. In the vice presidential poll, Davao City Mayor Sara Inday Duterte is leading over the rest of the field across all regions, with the widest margin in Mindanao, her bailiwick. Her lead, however, is the narrowest in NCR and SL. Senate President Vicente Tito Soto III is in second place at 10%, lower than his numbers in recent surveys. The decline in Soto's numbers placed him in a virtual tie with Senator Francis Kiko Pangilinan and Willie Doc Willie Ong, with all three polling close to 10%.
Bangladesh has resumed moving Rohingya refugees to a remote and flood-prone island, authorities said Wednesday, despite criticism from aid groups and claims some are being relocated against their will. Nearly 20,000 members of the stateless minority who fled neighboring Myanmar in 2017 after a brutal military crackdown have already been sent to Bhasan Char Island. Bangladesh eventually wants to rehouse 100,000 of its approximately 1 million Rohingya refugees to the island, moving them from cramped relief camps on the mainland. But hundreds already sent there have since been arrested in coastal towns after fleeing the island, and dozens died in August after a fishing boat carrying escapees capsized. Another 2,000 Rohingya will nonetheless be transferred this week. The country's Deputy Refugee Commissioner Muzem Hossain told AFP more than 6 months after the last group was sent there. Navy ships will bring them to the island on Thursday, he added. The UN Refugee Agency signed a deal with Bangladesh authorities to provide help and protection to refugees on the island last month.
Back here in the country, the Congressional Bicameral Conference Committee on Wednesday approved a measure raising the age of statutory rape from the current 12 years old to 16 years old to protect young people from sexual exploitation and abuse. Zambales Representative Cheryl Deloso Montalia, head of the House contingent, expressed delight at the discussion between both the House and the Senate transpired smoothly and efficiently. She also noted that the Bicam Committee adopted the Senate version of the so-called Romeo and Juliet clause, stating that there would be no criminal liability on the part of the perpetrator if the age difference between the victim and the perpetrator is not more than 3 years, and the act in question is proven to be consensual. Tingog Party List Representative Yeda Marie Romualdez, one of the principal authors of the bill, said the establishment of a minimum age of sexual consent is the most important and critical criteria in protecting minors from sexual violence, since the present anti-rape law establishes the age of sexual consent at 12 years. If the bill is passed into law, Tingog Party List Representative Yeda Marie Romualdez said any adult who has sexual intercourse with a minor below 16 years old will be guilty of rape, even if the minor has given his or her consent to the sexual act. Statutory rape is non-forcible sexual activity in which one of the individuals is below the age of consent or the age required to legally consent to the behavior. Current Philippine laws provide that sexual intercourse with children below 12 years old is illegal and tantamount to rape.
And ASEAN Focus, we'll be right back.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. May lalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Sabihin ko na ba na mahal kita? Hindi ko na kayang ilipat. Ang puso kong ito.
Hello everyone, this is Bamboo Beats at may tutuparin ako isang letter sender request ngayong Sabado, November 27 sa Letters and Music, 1 to 2 p.m. dito lang sa Net 25. See ya!
And welcome back. Equity markets in Asia mostly fell Thursday as a batch of strong economic data spurred expectations that the Federal Reserve will withdraw its vast financial support and lift interest rates earlier than thought. A drop in jobless claims to a 5-decade low, along with a surge in consumer income and spending, reinforce optimism that the world's biggest economy is well on the recovery track, but added pressure on the central bank to prevent it from overheating. The readings came as minutes from the Fed's November policy meeting showed officials were moving towards tapering their vast bond buying program, known as quantitative easing, at a faster pace as they try to tame rocketing prices. The S&P 500 and Nasdaq closed Wednesday with healthy gains ahead of the Thanksgiving break. But the Dow edged slightly lower and Asia largely followed suit. Hong Kong, Shanghai, Sydney, Singapore, and Manila were all in the red. Seoul was also weighed by the South Korean central bank's decision to lift interest rates for a second time. Tokyo, however, rose thanks to a rally in the dollar against the yen that helps exporters, while Wellington, Taipei, and Jakarta also edged up.
Back here in the country, Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez III has showcased before Japanese investors the Philippines' brightening economic prospects, supported by a strong financial position and the Duterte administration's game-changing initiatives, urging them to take part in the country's shift to a new and better post-pandemic recovery. He said these game changers in the country's business landscape include the fast-track digitalization program across the Philippine bureaucracy, the timely passage of the corporate income tax or CIT reform law, the establishment of a national ID system, measures to further improve the ease of doing business, the sustained modernization of the country's infrastructure under President Duterte's signature program Build, 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 and the government's ambitious plan to adapt and mitigate the impact of climate change. Despite COVID-19, annual foreign direct investment inflows from Japan did not drop, but even increased by 45% compared to the pre-pandemic period, making it the Philippines' second largest source of FDIs under the Duterte presidency. He also said Japan is also the Philippines' top export market. Dominguez said the Duterte administration will also continue to push in Congress the passage of the economic liberalization bills and the remaining packages of the tax reform program covering property valuation and passive income and financial intermediaries. He urged entrepreneurs to maximize the impact of these business-friendly measures by shifting other sustainable practices to the circular economy.
Meanwhile, here the message of His Excellency President Rodrigo Duterte during the virtual economic briefing Wednesday, attended by key government officials and business leaders from Japan. Let's take a look.
I started my presidency with a pledge to pursue meaningful change and equitable growth. We have made significant headways, but more needs to be done. The Philippines' transition to a sustainable and more inclusive society opens many opportunities for economic expansion. This, along with the robust bounce back from the pandemic and the Philippines' demographic sweet spot, will help keep the country on a growth path. The Philippines needs to sustain the momentum, and we can only do this to deeper and broader cooperation with countries like Japan. Japan is unrivaled partner of the Philippines for peace and development. It is one of our most significant trade, investment, and development assistance partners. Japan ODA is in fact the gold standard, and more than partnership, we value Japan as a friend closer than a brother. We welcome Japan's continued support, and we build on our accomplishments and work further to realize sustainable development goals and 2040 vision. My friends, never in our shared and meaningful history has the Philippines and Japan friendship become more valued than today. Working together, the Philippines and Japan will continue to show to the world a partnership that works to transform the lives of many for the better. Thank you. Arigato.
In other news, Binibining Pilipinas celebrated the double victory homecoming of two of its recently crowned queens, Cinderella Obenita, Miss Intercontinental 2021, and Maureen Montaigne, Miss Globe 2021 at the Novotel Araneta City. Now, according to Maureen and Cindy, their combined pageant journeys was a test of patience and fortitude after a year and a half wait for their respective pageants to push through. Our Filipino queens also brought home the real crowns, not replicas of both pageants. The Miss Intercontinental crown reportedly costs 18 million pesos. Their back-to-back wins also strengthened our reputation as a pageant powerhouse in Asia. Cindy likewise asked for support of the next competing candidates by saying, "I just want to encourage all to support the other queens, and it's really hard to compete internationally, but once you feel the support from your country, it becomes easier to clinch the crown." Let's listen in.
I think that to be a beauty queen is to be a global ambassador for goodwill. So I've already experienced the difference, the eyes, people are listening to what I have to say, to what I want to do. And I think that's the most powerful thing about being an international title holder. It's the influence, the platform. And we talk about this so often, but to really experience it, it leaves me in awe, the amount of people who want to work with me now, who have eyes on me. So it really is a blessing, and I'm so glad that, we were able to bring home the Miss Globe crown. And I really want this to be one of the most important years of my life. I think I'm old enough, mature enough to handle the pressure that comes with it, and I'm ready to put in the work.
Filipino characteristic that we should show to the world is really relatability, and that's what I showed to the international community, that even an ordinary person can relate him or herself to the queen. Like, this queen knows her purpose, the queen knows her values, and she really shows it in her everyday activities. I think that's what's most important and that we should all be doing every day.
The special thing about Miss Globe is they handcraft a crown for every single queen that they get to keep for the rest of their lives. So this is mine. I know Anne Collis in 2015, hers had red rubies. Mine just they have sapphires. But our crowns are estimated at about 3,000 euros. And they take 3 months to make. They're made of silver. And some of the crystals are glass crystals, but we do have some stones.
I mean, being named as the pageant powerhouse in Asia, being tagged as that, we also work hard for that. You see, I mean, the queens, we all had our sleepless nights, our mental breakdown, heartaches, and napakarami nating pinagdaanan. But we're there. Like, we showed to the world that we can really conquer, whatever pageant we're into. And I think what's really important is you know your purpose. Because once you know your purpose, you won't be... Hindi ka nila basta-basta matatalo. Yun eh. And then also you need to have a very good support system. That's where you matter. So very important that you have these people around you and the support of your family. I just really want to encourage you all also to support the other queens who are competing, because it's really hard to compete internationally, but once you have the support, once you really feel the support of the whole community, then I think it would be possible to clinch any of the crowns.
Smart Green ASEAN Cities Program, or SGAC, launching was held virtually on 22 November at 8:30 to 10 a.m. That's Jakarta or Bangkok time. SGAC is a program to support the implementation and achievement of the environmentally sustainable cities in Southeast Asia, which has been a priority for ASEAN. The program is implemented by the United Nations Capital Development Fund and funded by the European Union.
Thank you very much. So we hereby open the Smart Green ASEAN Cities program. Hooray!
Congratulations. Oh, okay, press the button.
Oh, there's the button. There we go. Fantastic.
Well done.
Thank you, Charlene, for joining me today. Thank you for your time, as always.
Thank you also, Alma. And that's the latest news in the ASEAN region. Thank you for joining us today here in ASEAN in Focus. This is Charlene Navaja from your Vietnam Bureau, and we live in interesting times.
And we'll see you back tomorrow, same time, same place, here on ASEAN in Focus. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.
Ang paborito nating barkada sa umaga. Magbibigay ng saya, tawanan at iba't ibang pakulo sa inyong umaga.